This phrase, I can fit that in, is a mindset shift. It's literally a way of being. I can fit in the things that matter to me. I can't cram more into an already busy schedule. But what I can do is get real about the stuff that is in my life that no longer belongs. The stuff I don't have time for, that I don't want to fit in, the things that drain me, the people that drain me, the activities that are just distractions like Netflix every night or scrolling on Facebook for an hour and a half before bed. That's the stuff that is draining, that no longer deserves my attention.
Welcome to the Company of Dads podcast. I'm your host, Paul Sullivan. We're focused on lead dads, working moms, and how small changes at home or work can have a big impact on their lives. Each episode promises to deliver actionable advice on some area of concern at home or at work. Short, direct, again, actionable. 5 questions, 5 answers. Today, we're talking to Erin Coupe, a global speaker, executive partner, personal guide, and creator of I Can Fit That In, a platform and methodology that empowers high performers to redefine success through inner alignment. Her approach blends neuroscience, mindset mastery, and modern leadership principles. Her book came out of personal experience to, as she says, shift from self-sabotage to self-leadership. She founded Authenticity EC to help others do the same. Erin and I got connected through her husband, Craig. He and I happened to go to the same small college many years apart. But what prompted him to reach out was his own decision to become a lead dad, leaving his real estate career behind to be there for their kids and to help Erin build out her business. So we have lots of points of connection here. Welcome, Erin, to the Company of Dads podcast.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Paul.
All right. So as promised, 5 questions, 5 answers, okay? No tricks in here. Question 1, which will appeal to all of our lead dad listeners and many of our working mom listeners. How did you and your husband make what you call the big pivot? And how did he become the lead dad?
Yes. Well, so 2 years ago, he's been in the business 1 year. So 2 years ago, he came to me and he said, I see what you're doing every day. And first of all, it's work that you love. And secondly, you're really good at it. And, people need it. And he noticed that from afar, but also, obviously we live together, we talk about it. He sees, some of the revenue numbers, things like that. And he could tell that I was really onto something. And then he looked at his own career, his own life, and he thought, gosh, I'm actually not that fulfilled in what I'm doing. It's very transactional. I've been very good at it for a long time. It's been good to me, but eventually it started to feel stale to him. And I think the pandemic also is a big part of that. He was in office leasing and, the world changed from an office perspective. So it wasn't as sexy as it used to be either. And when he said, I think I want to join your business, I was floored. I never saw that coming. I was like, wait a minute, what? And meanwhile, for about 6 months, we had been talking.
But did you ask him to could you send me your resume, or do you have any references here?
No, but I did say, wait a minute, we would have to really talk about what that looks like, right? And I had been saying for a while that as I was getting busier in my business, that was year 3, I was feeling more pressure in our home because I was managing everything, the kids' schedules, how it is, the kids' schedules, the house projects, all those things. And I was writing out a list of all the things that have to be done and putting a name next to who's responsible for them. And it was very clear that it was all on my plate for the most part. He was a very present dad, but not in the ways that he really could be or actually even wanted to be. So when we talked about what does it look like for us as a couple, what does it look like for our family, what does it look like for the business if we actually make this move? And it took about 6 months of also talking about those things. It wasn't, cut and dry, or even once it actually happened, it wasn't overnight that it was like, we've got this figured out.
Right.
But that choice, that pivot is the best thing that we could have ever done.
No, it's so fascinating that you wrote everything down on a piece of paper, because one of the things that we do at the Company of Dads is we help couples by doing this thing called the paper test. Very simple, but it's essentially that in a nutshell. Like, you write down everything you do, and then you write down everything you think your husband does, and then vice versa. And the thing that we always guarantee is that those lists will never, ever match. But what happens so often in a relationship, it's like you didn't set out to do 35 things and carry the mental load, and he didn't set out to do 3. It just sort of happens like that. And it's so great that you guys had this moment, because that's where too often resentment builds up. You're like, holy shit, look at all the stuff that I'm doing. I have the mental load and you don't even know. So it's remarkable. And then sort of follow-on question there though, and it's probably pretty obvious for our listeners, but what has it meant for you? How did you make that transition where those 35 things, 30 of them would go to his side of the ledger? And then what did it mean for you being able to let go of some of that mental load or most of that mental load so you could focus more on your business? And then of course the fun part of being a mom and a spouse.
Yeah, well, I mean, for one, it meant that I could actually have the energy and the capacity to focus on writing my book, which I knew I wanted to do for some time. But in our old ways of living, there was no way that I could have done that project. So that's a big, I'd say, tangible aspect of what happened.
Yeah.
You know, making that transition overnight to, okay, now all of a sudden there's way more on his plate that has to do with the family and the home. That wasn't quick. It wasn't just like I woke up one day and I'm like, oh, like breakfast for the kids is no longer my responsibility. Like
Right.
it wasn't that seamless. In fact, you know, what I did say to him, he left corporate mid-May of last year. And I said, you know, throughout the summer, just focus on deconditioning. You know, you've been in it for a long time. I know what it's like because I left after 17 and a half years, right? So I've made that transition already. But he really needed time to do that. So I didn't want him to all of a sudden feel like he had to jump in and be some hero either in the business or in the family. I was like, let's just ease into this. And so it was gradual. And now I would say I still manage a lot of things because it's just in my personality. It's who I am. I'm very, very organized.
Yeah.
But he has taken on, I mean, he's gotten very good with calendar invites, which I love. I live and die by my calendar. But I know little things I've had to just like teach and just say, hey, let's do it this way because this is going to be better for all of us if it's organized, you know? So it has been a journey.
I love it. So I also live and die by our calendar. And at one point, my oldest daughter, who's 16, showed one of her friends at school the family calendar, and the girl was like mind blown. I'm like, but I become like, if you remember the movie Ron Burgundy, you know, the Wolf family, he would read anything put in front of him, and there's a funny line at the end of it. That is how we are with our calendar. Like if anything on the calendar, and it's like, if it's not there, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. That's how we are.
Fantastic. So question 2 here, and this is kind of going into sort of your career and also giving you a chance to sort of explain how you're working with individuals and companies. When you think about the shift that you've made in your family life, how has it changed perhaps or modified the way that you're working with companies? And, you know, what do you incorporate any of the advice that you have from your own situation into helping these other high performers that you work with?
Well, you know, one of the things you touched on a little bit ago is resentment. And I am very, very, very vulnerable and open when I am doing a talk for a company, when I'm on stage delivering a keynote for a conference, when I'm doing workshops for corporate. Whatever setting I'm in, I do a lot of storytelling. And I love telling stories because that is how people relate to the emotional well-being or the thought process, the mentality of what it's like to be in a certain situation and to come out of that or to come out on the other side or to learn and grow through it. So a lot of the work that I'm doing has to do with human skills development, right? Like how are we going to be more human in how we lead ourselves and therefore lead others? And I talk a lot about the resentment that I used to hold in my life towards Craig. Now, in reality, it was actually towards a lot of people and a lot of things. And in business, in corporate, what I noticed is that I was the person who could easily blame anyone or anything for how I felt. I didn't want to take responsibility for the fact that I felt fairly unfulfilled, or didn't want to take responsibility for the fact that I felt like I wasn't good enough, or whatever it was, whatever script was playing out in my mind that was just some false narrative that my inner critic created. I was very attached to those stories and I was resentful about them. And then it made me point to the people and the things. Craig, I'm resentful towards you because you don't do anything. Right. I'm a martyr. I'm the one who has to manage it all. So those stories absolutely come out. And now I have a different layer to apply to that, which is, oh, and my husband ended up joining my business. So if that doesn't tell you that the inner work that I've done on myself has completely transformed my life from the inside out, then I don't know what does.
Tell me about how it resonates with the people in the audience. You think about, you're speaking to companies, but you're not. You're speaking to the people who work for those companies in the audience. How is it resonating with them, and what do you think they're taking away? Or what are they telling you that they're taking away from that?
So a couple of things there. I mean, for one, I have sat through so many speeches or workshops in corporate where I didn't learn anything. And so I don't tolerate that. I don't think that it's wise to put someone in front of a corporate audience that's not going to teach while they're on that stage or they're in that room. So
even if you have cookies at the back of the room, it still doesn't count.
Even if you have cookies,
you have to learn. Okay, all right, this is good. I'm learning something here.
Yes,
Right.
I mean, I also don't love sweets, so maybe that's why I feel that
Not
way.
even like red velvet cookies. You don't even like. Everyone likes red velvet. Like if you see, okay, all right, keep going. We got to learn something here.
But yeah, like you've got to learn something. And so I'm always big on, okay, let's just say for intent and purpose, I'm doing a 45-minute talk. There's got to be at least 3 tools that I'm teaching. And every single audience, there is one tool that will apply to everybody. So everyone's going to be able to take one of those things and just go, I applied it and this is how I felt, or I applied it and this is what it did for me. And that could be as simple as like a new breathing technique, or it could be as simple as starting to, question some of the thoughts that they're having, just little things. Then the other 2 tools are going to be those that are like the next layer up. Maybe a little bit more complex, but not difficult, but more people would say, geez, that one or those 2 really resonated. I'm going to practice 2 of these. And then there's going to be a subset of people that will practice 3 of them.
Yeah.
I get messages constantly on my website, on social media, on LinkedIn, people sending me emails saying, wow, like I practiced that one tool that you taught us, and here's what's happened for me the last few months. And so for me, it's the gift that keeps on giving, because not only am I hired to do this work that I love doing, but then I get to receive all of these messages from people who are actually applying what they learned and noticing the changes or the shifts because they're actually doing it.
Yeah, I like that. Question 3, which is going to pick right up from there. We want people to buy your book. It's coming out in November. But can you give us a few of those tips and tools that you share in your book or in the talks that help people become more deliberate in their decision making?
Yeah, so the first part of my book, it's a 3-part book. The first part is all about self-awareness and really activating self-awareness. My belief is that it's not that we're not self-aware or we are. It's that we have these parts of us that already know, but we're just not in tune with that. And so what I say is we have to activate that. There are various tools in the book on how to do that. But one of the things that I love to teach, and I teach this on stages or in workshops, is to be able to notice the voice in your mind, right? Like the voice in your mind is not necessarily who you are. It's an identity that you have embraced and given a lot of attention to over time. And you can call it your ego, you can call it whatever you want, but it's the voice of your mind. Now, you also have a voice in your heart. And I call that the authentic self. It's also, you can call it the spirit or the soul or your essence or your core. People can pick whatever word really resonates with them. But it's that voice that we often don't listen to. It's a quieter voice. It's one that is a little bit, I would say, tougher to give attention to because it doesn't really speak that loudly. It doesn't, vie for attention, if you will. But being able to decipher those 2 voices has to do with when you listen to the one in your head, how is it talking to you? Most of the time, it is putting you down. It's criticizing, it's sabotaging, it's creating doubt or fear. And that is what leads people to inaction. Now, you could also say it leads people to action, and maybe those actions are not great, but I'm more so about how is it holding you back? Yeah. What is it keeping you from pursuing or keeping you from doing that you want, right? On some level, So the real tool there is not only to notice that voice, but then to start to ask it questions. And when you start asking something like, is this fact? Or is this 100% true? You're going to find the answer is no, right? So being able to fine tune what you're listening to and when, and let go of the stuff that doesn't serve you. That's a really, really big thing that people just don't choose to do that on a daily basis. Right. They might do it once a month, or they might just somehow read a book and go, oh, I'm going to actually do this. But no, you have to practice it until it becomes natural.
Yeah, it's like you go on vacation, you come back, you feel your head is cleared, you've had this time to think. But if you're not careful, you go right back into what you slip into
before. The old ways. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. So that's the first section. What are the other 2 sections? Tell
so the next section is all about designing rituals. So I mean that entire part of the book is, case in point, a tool. It is the biggest tool that you're going to take away from the book. Design rituals unique to you and to your life that actually fuel you, fulfill you. So if you think about it, this phrase, I can fit that in, is a mindset shift. It's literally a way of being. I can fit in the things that matter to me. I can't cram more into an already busy schedule. But what I can do is get real about the stuff that is in my life that no longer belongs. The stuff I don't have time for, that I don't want to fit in, the things that drain me, the people that drain me, the activities that are just distractions, like Netflix every night or scrolling on Facebook for an hour and a half before bed. Yeah. That's the stuff that is draining, that no longer deserves my attention. Now, this is not about perfection. So it's not like, okay, let's just cut out all those things that are mindless, but it is about being aware of what those are so that we're also making other choices to put in the things that fuel us. So designing your own rituals. Rituals are things with other people. So for example, Craig and I cooking a meal together. We love doing that. We both love cooking. Once a week, we want to do something that's gourmet, right? Like something that really took a lot of thought and a lot of ideating, and it's got special ingredients, and it's like, it's fun. We both enjoy that. So that's a ritual that we have together. Taking a long walk together, a couple days a week where we don't bring our phones, we're not engaged in anything but just each other's company and nature. Like that's a really great ritual that we both have that grounds us, but also keeps us connected. So it fuels us. My personal rituals, my mornings. I love my mornings with no one awake. I like to make my own coffee. I've got a certain, it's an elixir that I make where it has.
Erin, I don't believe you for a second. You've got two boys. I know this. What do you get up at like 4 a.m.? How do you avoid them?
I started getting up at 5:15. That was the big thing. Yeah. Now, as they've gotten older, they sleep a little bit longer. So I too can sleep a little bit longer. But yes, I like to have just at least 30 minutes of just my own time before the world turns on and starts demanding from me. So also during that time, I might meditate, I might journal, I might read a few chapters of a book. It's not the same routine. I am big on let's not make things a routine, because then we're checking a box. And on the days we don't check the box, we feel like we failed. That is an emotional trap. So I'm big on let's not make it a routine. Let's just keep it a ritual. Therefore, you're choosing it when it serves you, right? You're choosing it because it fuels you.
Okay. And the last section?
So the last section is all about actually taking what you learned in the book in parts 1 and part 2 through self-awareness and designing your own rituals, and then allowing that to then fuel your purpose, your initiative, your meaning in life. So that's where it translates into how are you showing up at home? How are you showing up as a dad or a mom or as a spouse? How are you showing up as a leader? How are you showing up when you go to Starbucks and buy a coffee, and how you treat the barista, right? So it's really allowing all of that to become more of your beacon of light as your spirit kind of, shines through, and how you're leading yourself.
I love this. Question 4 is going to kind of drill down on one part of that. And that's, you describe your work as helping people create lives rooted in choice. You've touched on some of that here, but we were having a discussion last night with one of our daughters saying, like, you're at an age where you can choose what you want to do and choose wisely. You don't have to get railroaded into doing something you don't want to do. Most adults will say, well, I wish I had all the choices in the world, but I need to pay my mortgage. I need to get my child to a doctor's appointment. I need to do all these other things. So what does it really mean when you say helping people create lives rooted in choice? And how can it be applied practically when there's so many demands on our time at home, at work, et cetera?
Yeah. Well, so for one, you choose your mindset, right? So you can either look at life like, oh, there's so many demands and I have no time. Or you can look at life and you can say, yes, there's a lot of demands. That's never going to change. And I also can't change time. What I change is my relationship to it. And so I am huge on the victimhood mindset just doesn't work. It will not ever get you where you want to go. It will not ever help you feel better in your own skin. It will not change the way that you look. It's not going to change anything about your life. So if you actually want to change anything about your life, you've got to change the way that you're thinking about your life, right? And I am case in point, because I went from that person who literally was raised with nothing and, was very, very poor, and then changed my own life trajectory just by making choices to start to put myself out there more, put myself into school, and then moved to New York City where I know nobody. Like all of these things were just choices even as big as some of those ones I just described,
Yeah.
down to tiny ones on a daily basis. When I get up in the morning, do I want to say, oh, it's another day? Like, here we go again. It's the rat race. Or do I want to get up and say, it's another day. I'm lucky to be alive. I'm going to actually have excitement or enthusiasm for my day, regardless of how much I have going on, right? I can't change my external circumstances just like that, but I can change the way that I navigate it. That is a choice. That is a choice that everyone can make. Now, within context, of course, there are people on this planet that are extremely disadvantaged, and their choices are going to look different than the choices that you and I are necessarily describing right here. I still believe emotionally and mentally, you can choose your thoughts and you can choose to ruminate in a really dark place or not, right? Like I took a course in neuroscience at MIT years ago. And one of the things that I learned was that there was a study that we had to read and do a report on. And 80% of people that are experiencing mental health, issues or, things that they're concerned about, for 80% of those, it's actually just mental and emotional thoughts and feelings that they're dealing with. It's not actually clinical. So 20% of the time, there may be a clinical, imbalance where someone can't necessarily choose a thought or what to think about. But 80%, that's the people that I'm talking about and talking to, and that's the people that I'm mainly serving. We can actually have the awareness of what is playing out in our minds and what do we want to follow and what do we want to let go.
I love this. Tomorrow I'm going to choose to yell at my colleagues before they yell at me. Is that
there
good?
You go.
Is that the positive
Yeah.
mind? I love it.
Yeah. I mean, just be ready to actually fix that energy because you're going to have to get yourself back up from that. Yeah. You always have to right your wrongs. Don't forget about that because energy never stops.
I love it. All right. Question 5. And this is, a personal one, but I think, our families sound similar in some ways because of the choices we make. And I'll say this, I've got 3 daughters. You have 2 sons. You live in the Chicago suburbs. I live in the New York suburbs. These are generally places, and in these upper middle class places, where gender roles are trapped in the past. And so, how do you see the decisions that you and Craig made affecting your children, but also perhaps empowering some of the people that you speak to make similar choices if they're right for them?
Yeah, it's interesting that you asked that because I feel like a lot of times people look at, the business that I have and the success I've had with this business, and they think, oh, if I could maybe just leave my job and run my own business, then that would actually be the answer to whatever, their marriage or their relationship with their kids or any of those things. And I always say it's not about that, right? Because first of all, and you know this, but running your own business is not for everybody. Mm-hmm. The corporate world's not a bad place. It's just the people in it make it a bad place sometimes. And so if you understand that working on yourself, doing some of this inner work, using some of these tools to better your own way of thinking, to better your own way of feeling and then behaving in the world, will actually start to shift some of the ways that people react to you. And when that happens energetically, you are showing up from a different place. And it does teach others through osmosis. So I think in our own family, that has happened. I mean, the fact that Craig even decided to join my business is because I was showing up so differently over time that he was experiencing me differently. He was responding to me differently because I was no longer reacting the way that I used to react to him, right? Or to our lives. I wasn't bringing that level of negativity or resentment or just constant lack of fulfillment into our relationship or our family anymore. I was navigating that within myself and processing what I needed to process rather than just project it out there and make it someone else's problem. So when I consider, Craig joining and what it's done for our family, for one, he's more present. He definitely didn't. He was present before as far as he was here and he did a lot with.
But he was commuting into the city. He was commuting.
Yeah. He was here in the evenings. He was taking off early in the morning, so I had the mornings covered. And in the evenings, most of the time I was cooking and I was doing all the cleanup and all that stuff. But he was physically here, but mentally and emotionally he was not.
Right.
So now he gets to be mentally and emotionally available to all of us, which is a huge change. And a really, really good change. And I believe my boys are learning a lot about what a heart-centered man and a great father actually is, because he gets to be those things with them now. He didn't get to do that before.
It's fascinating because we talk so much about, boys and masculinity and how they learn these examples. For people who don't know, I mean, your husband was quite a good college basketball player in the day. Unlike the rest of us, he's not 5'11", because on Zoom, I think everybody's 5'11". He's way taller than that. And so he's coming at this from, boys playing sports, boys being athletic. Dad was athletic. Dad had success. And he's showing them a different way to be both masculine and caring. And this is, anybody who's listening to podcasts, read the stuff we do at the Company of Dads, know that this is so important to me, because I want to help create a world where, when my 3 daughters grow up, the assumption is not that they are going to fit into these outdated gender roles.
Exactly. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. And our society is shifting, and it's been shifting right before our eyes for the last several years. And, the future we're not in a world where people just stay at the same company for 35 years and just grind it out and then think that they're going to find happiness or fulfillment or live their best life at 65. Like, we're no longer those people. So how are we shifting our daily lives to where they feel more fulfilling every day? And we're making the choices that are good for our families and good for our relationships and really serve the whole unit, rather than just egotistically maybe one person's lifestyle.
All right, I can't leave without asking you. He's a year in the business, right? Is that
yes.
with you? I mean,
yeah.
how are his performance reviews? Is he hitting his targets, his metrics? Is he all right?
You know what? For the first 6 months, we didn't do anything because, I'm like, hey, it's like, I mean, literally, it's starting a whole new career, because he's like, this is all so new to him. Every bit of it is so new to him. But, his role is Chief Growth and Ops. And so he's had a steep learning curve, but I think the beauty is that he's had me to learn from. And, I was running things soup to nuts. So being able to offload a lot of things to him once I taught him the ropes it's just been so incredibly helpful. And we've built a big team. I mean, we've built a team of 12 people now. So we've got, quite a bit of people on the marketing side. And obviously we have like our publishing team and all of them. We've got our creative director. So it's been a lot of fun also having him engage. He talks to so many great people like you. He's intuitively finding all these really cool people that we are just expanding our energetic footprint through getting to know so many like-minded, like-hearted, wonderful people. And he's been a huge help with that.
Erin Coupe, I can fit that in. Thank you for being my guest on the Company of Dads podcast today. Tell people where they can find you.
Yes. erincoupe.com. So that's Erin, ERINCOUPE.com. I am also on LinkedIn, Erin Coupe, and on Instagram at AuthenticallyEC.
Thank you so much, Erin.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Company of Dads podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in week after week. Just want to use this moment here to thank the people who make it possible. Number one, of course, Helder Mira, who is our podcast editor. We also have Skip Cherryholmes, who many of you know from the Lead Dad Diaries. He's taken over our social media. Terry Brennan is helping us with our audience development, and Emily Servin is there each and every day helping with the web development. I can't do any of this without an amazing board of advisors. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who help, and I want to say thank you to everyone who listens, and hopefully you'll tune in again next week. Thanks so much.